Human obsession with scale is ancient. The pyramids, the ocean, space. The indomitable human spirit possesses us to explore things greater than our bodies. The moment we could digitally fabricate whatever we imagined, we implement that into our entertainment. These advancements in technology have shifted our desire of what we see on screen. However, not just our desire, but the priorities of the film industry as a whole has changed, which in turn has birthed a concerned debate among critics and filmmakers about the seeming decline of narrative-focused films from the era of classical Hollywood, such as Casablanca and Citizen Kane, in favour of high-octane, visually stunning action set-piece franchises that we see diluting modern cinema, like the Avengers or more recently Rebel Moon. Humans want spectacle, like heart-racing fight scenes and breathtaking visuals, but to achieve that, must we first sacrifice narrative in modern blockbusters? This is what I will be discussing in this video essay. It's 1948, the film industry's trial of the century, the United States versus Paramount Pictures, where court declared the separation of studio and exhibition and the end of block booking. The studio's monopoly on the industry was knocked loose, and with televisions becoming more affordable for the post-war growing middle class, box office revenue dropped. Something needed to bring people back to the cinema. The industry had to change. Without the tall shadow of the studio and their tightly bound contracts, filmmaking hit its stride, with newfound independence allowing for rising auteur artists to take the helm, forming an entirely new way to make and watch films, now referred to as post-classical style. As of now, I believe the style to be even more pronounced and exaggerated. An example being shot lengths have reduced from 11 seconds in the studio era to around 7 to 8 seconds. This is likely from the accessibility to digital editing and the fast pace of advertisements. New technology also opened the industry to Steadicams and drones, now under supervision of creatives more likely to break traditional film rules, like the 180 line, or purposely leave out establishing shots to disorientate the viewer, completely changing our visual understanding of how a story is told, and through an increase of CGI and special effects, it can be told anywhere. However, under all the grandiose, narrative suffocates. Take Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, perfect example of blinding spectacle with a hollow interior. Rebel Moon looks fantastic. The costume department did a superb job making characters feel a part of a larger galaxy, and at times I found myself lost in the enormous scope of the action. However, we have seen this movie before, more than once. The film follows Cora, a defector of the Imperium who she now hides from on a farming moon called Velt. That summary may have given you deja vu to Star Wars, a film made 47 years ago. Stop me when you've heard this one before. Smuggler helps the Chosen One to escape a rural planet to fight with the resistance against the Galactic Imperium. It also blends genre with heist movies, as Cora must assemble a team of heroes who have all been wronged by the Imperium because they killed everyone they love or something. Once these characters are recruited, they probably have 1 or 2 lines for the rest of the film because they don't matter, and because the narrative doesn't matter. Gibbs states that you should not lead one to overlook the extent to which performances is central to our understanding of narrative film. All of the characters share the same traits and have similar tragic backstories, so they all act the same. When Han Solo said, "I know," after Leia confessed her love, it's the reason Star Wars is so beloved, because that's exactly what Han would say, not Luke or Lando. Star Wars isn't a perfectly crafted narrative, but it has charm. Rebel Moon's characters feel like they've been written by AI. Rushton writes, "Narrative is fascistic, while spectacle is liberating and democratic." However, there is nothing unique in Rebel Moon's spectacle. The Imperium starships are no more than copies of what everyone else is doing. Snyder's overuse of slow motion is as jarring as Michael Bay's unnecessary explosions. Slow motion is when the filmmaker really wants you to see something that will be usually too quick for your eyes, not for throwing seeds on the ground. The importance of spectacle is that it allows us to do whatever we want, whether it enhances the story or not. Rebel Moon fails at using spectacle as an excuse to ignore complex narrative. It also fails at making the narrative complex. It feels like we have returned to old Hollywood, where the studio, Netflix, also the place of exhibition in contradiction to the Paramount decree, needed a sci-fi world to shill the next franchise like the Avengers and get their blank slate side characters their own TV spin-offs, skins on Fortnite and toys. Langford describes this priority as an immersive hypertextuality. The economics of the industry has changed to the point where the characters themselves are the spectacle, regardless of whether they have a story left to tell or not. Of course studios want to make the next MCU, but in the crossfire, narrative lies dead. Or does it? Reports of the death of narrative in Hollywood are surely exaggerated, so I began thinking perhaps the fault of Rebel Moon is the saturation of the sci-fi genre and the diminishing returns of the post-classical style. Denis Villeneuve's Dune is living proof that is not the case. All the problems with Rebel Moon, like its puddle-deep story, is combated with Dune's unordinary take on the classical Chosen One trope, while still enveloping you into a richly detailed galaxy with spectacular mise-en-scène and action set-pieces. Rushton goes on to say, "Narrative and spectacle are intertwined in complex ways, so that dividing them as polar opposites is ultimately a reductive and unproductive project for film studies." Buster Keaton's Wallfall to Technicolor took to Apocalypse Now. We've always craved spectacle. As technology advances, scale will become accessible as filmmaking did post-studio era. We can't have ice cream for dinner the same way we can't have spectacle for film. But we can't just have vegetables for dinner, or no one would want to eat it. In modern blockbusters, narrative has been sacrificed in favour of the money-printing spectacle. However, a synthesis between the two is possible, and has been proved by exciting creative minds like Villeneuve. Wood summarises this synthesis, quoting, "Digital effects have the potential to introduce a spatial progression to narrative. Spectacle is there to help narrative, and vice versa."